So I was getting started on this process, and it occurred to me, this is something that might be of use to some other folks. So I'm moving the old Canyon trails over to some decent wheels so I can do some work on the tread blocks, so I can put on some decent bead locks, maybe trim the foams a little, give them a little more compliance. I may have said contradicting things in the past, but as far as an OE tire goes, potential-wise, the Canyon Trail is a fantastic tire, and as I pointed out in another video, they are remarkably inexpensive. I think Jenny's has a full set of these for like $22, $23. So it's really tough to beat that price. So what we're going to have is, we're going to have Mr. Porter Cable heat gun, my good friend, the Bob Smith Uncure debonder, and whatever gloves you might have around that you think might protect your hands a little. I mean, it's gonna get hot. I'm kind of just gonna bounce around between the three. I had already, like I mentioned, I had already started this, but we'll just go through the basic process. This is what I have over time found to be the best method to getting at least Traxxas tires off their plastics, because I think I've said in the past that they employ some sort of glue wizards to get through the glue on these. They are glued better than any other tire, pre-glue tire on the market. Many moons ago, you could take a set of Pro lines to a parking lot, give it a decent amount of throttle, and just spin them off the wheels just by hitting a high grip surface. Duratrax are glued pretty well. J-Concepts are glued pretty well, but nothing like what Traxxas does. So I'll get started on what my basic process is, and hopefully it helps someone. My basic process is to start with one, and you can see you can get a little bit away, and that's that edge you want. So we try to get a little debonder along that line. We just move around. Doesn't have to be all the way. What we're looking for is just any gap, the tiniest little gap. So I'll kind of move these back, and then I have a good line of debonder all the way around the bead. So then we'll move on to one that I had already put the debonder on, and we'll start giving it some heat. Heat means gloves on. Get these moved over here. I don't know how terribly loud and annoying this will be. I have the heat gun on, I think, near the hottest setting. It's kind of something you learn to go by feel. You can kind of start to see the debonder start to migrate. I've tried this with Canyon Trails particularly. I've tried using just heat. I've tried using just debonder. Just debonder simply doesn't work. It can't get through how well these tires are glued. So it's definitely the combination of the two. You've got to put some heat to it. You got to have some chemical agent in there trying to break down the glue. Probably doesn't show up on camera, but I can see the tiniest gap forming between the edge of the wheel and that outer lip of the tire. So I'll just go around a handful of times, slowly moving around. The tire starts to get, I mean, I wish they stayed this soft, but they start to get really soft. And then once we've got a little bit of heat into them, we'll give it a little pressure, and as you can see, the debonder wicks down under the heat, and that's one full side of the wheel off. So basically, that process gets repeated. I give a little start to that one. That's a cold wheel. This one, I had already put a little debonder on. So again, It's not a ton of work, but you will get some hot hands, and you do have to have a heat gun. Harbor Freight heat gun's pretty cheap. And there are other debonders out there, but I have not had as good of luck with any of them as with BSI Uncure. So I will continue to get these pulled off. It's the exact same process for the backside. Get it pulled back a little, run a ring of debonder, do all four, move back, do heat one at a time until you've got all four of them off. And as you can see, they will come off very clean. There's usually just the tiniest little bit of residue to remove. And then I will move on to tuning these lugs up and getting them mounted. So I've got 3 done. They all came off pretty cleanly. You can see how soft a canyon trail really is. The OE foams are pretty firm and no contour to them at all. They make that weird, like, halfway to styrofoam noise. This one is fully debonded on the front. I've got the debonder on the back. And really, once you get one bead off, you're pretty much home free. This is unwise. I don't recommend, don't take my advice on this part. Except do be in a well-ventilated area. I'm indoors, but I'm in a pretty big building. There's a fan going in the background. As the debonder gets, like, basically up to boiling point, as the heat gun pushes it down into the bead, you will kind of start to, I guess the word would be fume yourself. You will definitely be able to detect some super glue fumes in the air, which is probably not great. I probably shouldn't be breathing this. But I don't debond tires that often. Like maybe a set every 2 or 3 months. So when my eyes start to burn, I know it's time to take it off the heat and push the bead off. And if I do this just right, I will look like as much of a magician as I did with that first tire, which went far easier than I would have anticipated. Usually these are a fight. Okay, and there we go. Actually got that one a little too hot, but maybe not. As soon as I see that little first wisp of smoke, you push on the tire and it pops right out. That tire is really hot. The camera is not, oh, it is picking up a little bit of the, that would be super glue smoke that's coming out of the tire. Let's get the foam out of there. Yeah, so that's those off. And I will get these extremely hot gloves off my hands, and I will get these cleaned up. And we'll move on up to the tuning portion of this. So I will still give a quick example of how I would, quote-unquote, tune these Proline foams. I basically just run around the outside edge and just round them off like that. And then I will usually do the same along the inside edge by trying to flip them around inside out. But these Proline foams are so firm that it takes about 3 pounds to fully collapse them. And the real problem with Traxxas foams is they're really inconsistent. So these are quite firm. These are the ones I just took out of these tires right now. This is the set I took out of another set that I had unglued. And these take like a little over 2 kilograms, so 4.5 pounds to fully collapse. So they are really firm. Like J Concepts calls their foams mediums. These are hard. These are basher foams. So I remembered that in a box I have a set of Proline dual stage. So those will be going in these. And the whole reason that you would do this is you've got yourself the little whatever Traxxas calls these, the stock wheels. And you throw that on the scale and you've got 18 grams, which, I mean, is pretty heavy considering that it's got a bunch of glue and rubber on it. Let's see how that averages out. All right, yeah, they're all going to be about 17, 18 a piece, which is within the range of accuracy for the scale. So I'll be replacing those with a cheap set of the Injora Steely bead locks. I like these that just have the 6 bolts on the back. They're a lot easier to mount. And compared to the 18 grams of the stock wheel, these are 106. So picking up 88 grams, 3.5 ounces per corner. The foams are a couple grams heavier, but they're nice. They're roughly the same firmness of the Traxxas foam on the inner, but much more compliant on the outer. So I'll get a lot better performance from these edge knobs. And we will get on to the cutting of the lugs, and that's up next. So once they've cooled down, I just give them a little wipe down, paper towel and some alcohol, get any little bit last sticky residue from the debonder off. Then old trusty leather punch comes in. I try to kind of locate them at about the 12 and 6 o'clock positions. Get in there. It's a 4mm hole that I'm using. It doesn't have to be perfect by any means. Just kind of try to get them consistent. Yeah, I can see one hole through the other, so pretty good. Then the way I've historically done these lugs is I take the little triangle guy with some flush cutters, and he's right off. So that's what we're looking for. Pull that lug off. It clears the tire out, gives you a lot more forward traction. And then I really love these. It's escaping me. CHP 170. Can't remember when or where I got these. They work great. Any flush cutter plier will work. I think Crescent and a couple other companies has some that you can probably pick up at a Home Depot or a Lowe's. These work great. They're like $6-7 a pair. I keep a couple pair on hand at all times. And now I got to go around. I got to cut all of those off, and then we'll move on to the next step. Now, undoubtedly, everyone is going to have a different way of attacking this. What I like to do is go all the way around the tire vertically. I cut through this little existing slot right there, and then once they're cut, I go back from the other side, get the plier right like that, and snip it off. So you get a pretty clean removal every time, because you can kind of get under there. It goes pretty quick, but it is time consuming. I mean, but aside from buying the tools, if you don't have them, this is as close to a free mod as you can get. So it's labor over cost, as I call it. And it's a lot. Like, you'll end up with piles of these little guys all over the place. So don't do it in the living room. Anyway, I've got one done there, but I'm not even a third of the way done. So I'll get back to that. Now that they're all cut on the center lug, we've got a big pile of forbidden chocolate chips over here on the side. The second cut is easy. On the side, you see you have this long lug, short lug, long lug. Right at that knuckle, I just put it right here, give it a cut. That's it. Just cut that lug. And as you go around, it gives the tire just that much more side compliance having that lug broken, because it turns that single long lug into two individual lugs. It makes quite a bit of difference, and compared to doing the rest of these down the center, it's much easier and it goes much faster. So I will finish doing those, and then I will get these thrown onto some wheels, and then we'll take a look at how they do. Okay, so everybody pretty much went onto their wheels with no drama. They are quite soft. That outer foam is very soft. Perhaps too soft for the application that I want to put them on. We will see here in a moment. I've used these particular wheels a couple times. This exact set has been moved around 4 or 5 times. They are pretty portly, over 200 grams a wheel now, which I mean is good. I like low weight. They're a bit soft. They will be going on the kernel. SCX 10.3 will be doing the little test to see if this is a performance increase, because it is he who needs tires more than anyone else. So I will get those bolted on. All mounted up, and I'm feeling a little better about the foam choice already. It seems to sit pretty much exactly how I would want it. I know that this is setting up these tires a bit more for pure crawling, which kind of goes against the nature of the SCX 10.3, but I don't think they can be any worse than any tire I've tried in the past. So let's get this out onto the rocks and try some mixed stuff, and see if the Colonel, the SCX 10.3, approves of his new shoes. And we've no time for faffing around, so we're going to take the Colonel straight to the obstacle that has been his Achilles heel. Dropping a little picture-in-picture in here to give some highlights of his previous performance on this particular obstacle, which just happens to be that footage is on the same tires. Those are the exact same tires, obviously before being baked off of the plastic wheels. And full disclosure, I have cobbled together a rear sway bar for him as well. I don't know how huge of an impact that's having on this particular terrain. I just do know that he is navigating it significantly better than he has ever before. So the cut block canyon trails on the heavyweight wheels with the Pitbull dual stage foams and the rear sway bar are all combining together to make the Colonel do pretty well. I think this is a great advertisement for the real capability of canyon trails if you put a little work into them. Because even here, exiting off that side hole portion, this little section right here, I don't think on any of the other tires that I've tested on the SCX 10.3 that it could get that little initial part of that climb done. Of course, we have to take him to that side hill with the out and then the loop around the little knob of rock there, and then the way back. And this rig would just fall off of this about, I don't know, probably 60% of the time. Here's again footage with the stock Canyon Trails unmodified on the right. As soon as it gets into there, I mean, it was a slow roll, but the feel of the modified tires is much better. Now, yes. Oh, we gotta get onto here. Will it still hoon? Have we imparted too much grip? Well, not really. You've got to give it a little more of a delicate touch. But he can now. Maybe it's the Canyon Trails that give defenders the ability to do the magical turtle and flip themselves over. But it's got a little. There's a little hoppiness to him. But straight off of that dirt onto a climb that had stymied him on most tires. And even here, getting a little slide to the right. Usually if a rig takes that little tiny slide to the right, that's it. They're just going to slide off. So that right there was a climb of victory for both the Colonel and the modded Canyon Trails. This was definitely worth the time I put into it. It is realistically probably 90 minutes all in to debond them, mount them on the cut them, mount them on the new wheels, take it out, do some running. It's definitely swung the needle at least a little bit more over towards rock crawler instead of just pure trail truck. I mean, I counted it as a pure trail truck that could do a little bit of crawling. It finally broke through in my head that, as I mentioned in his breakdown video, this is Axial's TRX4 Defender. It really is. I mean, weight-wise, everything. I might have a direct head-to-head comparo of the two coming up soon, because they're roughly outfitted the same. We'll see how that goes. Anyway, mod your Canyon Trails, everybody. Like, subscribe. Check me out on Instagram. I'll catch you in the next one.